students, Tim here with Premier Martial Arts in Aurora, ready to go over our next piece of curriculum. I hope you guys are all staying healthy, staying fit, staying active, staying safe, and I hope we're ready to get started today. Let's do it. Feet together, set, bow. All right, students, the first thing we're going to practice today is we are going to practice what I call a male triangle and our steps and footwork inside of this, or at least one piece of it. Now, do you have to have your own sticks or anything like this? No, but it definitely helps to have a piece on the floor to help visualize the shapes that we're trying to stay within. So I like to take my collie sticks and I make my triangle with the point of the triangle facing away from me. And that is the type of triangle that we call our male triangle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my feet at the back of the triangle. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to alternate taking one foot, stepping it to the front point of that triangle in a guard stance. I'll step back. Notice how when I step back, I keep I keep my hips down and I keep my knees bent. As soon as I step back, then right away I'm going to take my other foot and I'm going to flow that one to the front of the triangle. Now, notice how I'm not forcibly keeping my weight right in the center and just taking the steps, right? But with my feet in a good guard stance, I am flowing kind of at this angle, back to the center, and then out to this angle. It should take my head off of the center line just a little bit each time I make the step, right? That way I have a new position, but still aiming this way. So to continue, I step back, step in. I step back, I step in. Step back, step in. All right, students, now that we've practiced that basic step in with our male triangle, now what we should do is let's add jabs once we get into position. So again, starting at the back of the triangle, I'm going to step forward with one foot. I'm going to settle into this position first, and then I'll fire my jab. I'll step back, I'll step in. I'm not throwing my punch at the same time. I'm letting myself get into my guard stance here, really let my weight be balanced and comfortable before I fire the jab in that position. I step back, I step in, jab. Step back, step in, jab. Bang. All right, we've practiced stepping into our male triangle. We've practiced throwing our jab once we are settled into our position. Now, let's add the cross. So, again, starting at the back of my triangle, I step in. I let my weight settle in this position, and then I fire my jab. Now, I want to make sure that my cross gets to the same spot, so I need to make sure that I twist that back foot, I pull this hip in, and I throw that cross towards the front of it. Right, my cross shouldn't be just straight out from my guard stance. My jab goes here, but my cross is going to start to reach across my body to make sure that I'm hitting that angle that I want to hit. After I throw that cross, I make sure I retract my cross all the way back before I step to the back of my triangle and step in. Again, paying great attention, knowing, okay, I settle into my position. This is my jab here. Making sure that I'm twisting that back foot, turning that back hip as I pull the cross to the middle here. Again, making sure that I bring it all the way back to my guard stance before stepping back, stepping in. Here I'll start with the jab, fire the cross across. Bring it back, step, step, new position, jab, turning it in, cross. Jab, cross. Jab, cross. Jab, cross. So students, as you perform our sequences, practicing our male triangle, be very deliberate about your accuracy. I want to make sure that I am aiming to the front of this triangle, imagining if my opponent was maybe a little bit farther out here and that is my target, that's where I want to make sure that I'm aiming from this angle every time. So when I step in and I fire my jab, I make sure that my jab goes straight down this line as I fire it. And then when we add our cross into our sequences, making sure that my cross also aims down this line here, right? Not letting it flow out and about, right? I want to make sure that I stay focused. That way, when I need to do it with speed and there are stationary targets or moving targets, whenever I'm stepping in and out of these positions, I'm going to be focused, I'm going to be accurate, I'm going to be quick to get my targets. All right, students, now practicing for our kicks, I have this challenge for us today. I have this exercise that I want us to perform today. Now, I want you to consider your chambers for your front kicks and your round kicks. So let's start there first. So let's say I'm in a guard stance here, and I'm going to chamber for my front kick with my rear leg. When I start like this, I'm going to make sure I lift my knee. When I lift my knee, I curl my heel up towards my butt, and I take that knee and I point it up and forward this way, making sure that I keep my hip and my knee in that straight line so that I can execute my front kick out this way. Now, let's consider our chamber for our round kick. I still want to make sure that I make a good straight line from my shoulder down to my hip, and then especially from my hip to my knee towards the target. Hopefully we've seen the video of the little tip of practicing against the wall to help us with this alignment. If you haven't, check out the Instagram clip of the round kicks from a few weeks ago. But anyway, now without using the wall, I also want to practice making sure that I'm turning that front foot, letting my shoulders turn as I lift this knee. Now when I lift this knee and I'm getting ready for this round kick, I need to make sure that I start lifting and that I push my hip forward. Push my hip forward so that I create this alignment where my knee is pushing down. If I'm doing a great job keeping balance and chambering for powerful, accurate round kicks, it does not benefit me to let this knee start coming across here for the round kick. I want to make sure I'm pushing that hip forward, that way my whole hip stays strong, and I create this alignment here. Woo! For the round kick. So one more time, if I'm chambering for the front kick, I'm lifting that knee, making sure that I'm aiming down that line. And then if I'm chambering for the round kick, I rotate my hips, I push that hip forward, and I make sure my hip to my knee create that same kind of alignment. So think about those things first before moving on to the challenge. All right, students, now here's our challenge. Take a clip of you practicing this challenge and performing it, and then post it onto either Facebook or Instagram. Make sure you tag Premier Martial Arts at our location or Martial Arts Southwoods. But anyway, the challenge is going to be like this, and that's just going to be with incredible balance, alternating between that great alignment from our front kick and our round kick chamber without letting our foot touch the floor. So I'm going to start with that front kick chamber, lifting it up, making sure I'm pushing through this alignment. Now, keeping my knee up and forward, I'm going to push my hip, I'm going to let myself start turning as I turn that bottom foot, and I'm going to turn it into that round kick alignment, making sure that I'm lifting that heel, keeping it tight to my butt though. Then I'm going to tuck my hip back in, straighten it out, and I'm in a front kick, and then I'm going to push it forward again, letting my chest and my shoulders turn, lifting that heel, getting that external rotation of my hip to get to the round kick. Pulling it back to the front kick, pushing it forward to the round kick. Pulling it back to the front kick, pushing it forward to the round kick. Practicing keeping that alignment, working the strength and the range of motion in my hip to make sure that both kicks are going to be powerful by themselves and in combination. Perform this as many times as you can. Really challenge yourself to get from that front kick to round kick as many times as you can, the best that you can. All right, students, now let's practice some physical skills today. Let's practice some hand balancing skills that will increase our overall strength and dexterity through movements that will help us not just with our martial arts and our self-defense, but our overall just physical intelligence and dexterity like that. So first, let's start with this movement here. I'm going to crouch down, and I'm going to go ahead and lift my heels and point my knees out as far as I can. I'm going to take my hands and reach them to the ground, and I'm going to tuck my elbows inside my knees onto my thighs here. Once I get here, I'm going to place my hands onto the floor, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, with as much control as I can, lean forward far enough so that my weight goes into my hands and my feet come off the ground. Now, when I do this the first time, just to kind of warm myself up, I do this anyway, is I'll go ahead and I'll go all the way to bringing my head to the floor. So I reach, not my forehead or the front of my face, but the top of my head, I reach towards the ground. I take my feet off of the ground. Now with control, I'll push my head into the floor, bring myself back to my feet. I'll perform this maybe 5 times, just going to my head, back to my feet, going to my head, back to my feet. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is in between the two things, I'm going to try to hold that position as long as I can. Right? So now as I lean forward and my feet start to come off of the floor, I start reaching my head forward, but I don't bring it all the way to the ground. I'm just going to do my best to balance right here. Again, my elbows are inside my knees, and I'm making sure that I'm staying strong and engaged through my legs, right through my stomach, and then of course onto my hands too. Here I fall back. Even if I get all the way here, now once my head hits the floor, I want to, on the way back, do the same thing. push through the top of my head, lift, and do my best to balance right here. All right, students, now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the very same thing, but this time, instead of having my elbows inside my knees, I'm going to do my best to get my knees on top of my elbows here, or my elbows on top of my knees, depending on which orientation you're looking at it from. But now, what I'm going to do, I tuck here, with my elbows directly on top of my knees rather than inside. I'm going to start reaching forward, my hands hit the floor. And then the same thing, I'm going to press forward, making sure that I stay strong through here. As I lift, notice how I'm lifting my butt much higher to make sure my knees stay balanced on top of my elbows. I'm going to start tucking my feet up, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to reach the top of my head to the floor here. All right? Notice again, knees on top of the elbows. I'm going to push through my forehead, gripping through my hands to get all the way back to my feet. Again, elbows are on top. I keep this connected strong as I bring my hands to the floor. I start by pushing through my feet, lifting my butt higher than if my elbows were inside, and reaching my head towards the floor. I lift one foot first, I press and I lift the other foot. Bring the top of my head to the floor and use this to balance. Notice how I'm staying tucked, making sure that I'm staying strong through my core as I get to this position, pushing through my hands and my forehead to bounce me back to my feet. Now that we practiced in this position, right, with my elbows on top of my knees going to my head and to my feet, now I'm going to do my best to balance in between. So again, my hands are on the floor, my elbows on top of my knees. I start by lifting my butt and leaning forward. I lift one foot first, right? You see I take one foot off of the ground and then I balance here. Now I'm just going to do my best to hold this position as long as I can, right? Keeping my head tucked down just a little bit. That way if I do fall forward, I can just touch the top of my head to the floor, and it's totally fine for whenever I start to lose my balance to go ahead and put my feet on the floor. But it's just this position, right? Doing my best here. All right, students, thanks for following along today. Make sure in each section that of curriculum in the video that you pause, you make sure you practice each movement a handful of times, especially when we get to that last movement that we did today. Once you get to a spot that's challenging, just kind of stop where you feel it challenging, but practice that many times to really challenge yourself, to push yourself to grow stronger, to get even better at the movement. Anyway, I hope you guys are doing well, and I can't wait to see you in our next video. Feet together, set, bow!